Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you guys doing today? Today I'm here to bring you some information about the Bryan Kohberger plea hearing. Guilty, 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 guilty. I had to I watched the hearing. It's almost as if you don't believe that the information is true, that there could be an error, a mistake, that there could have been an offer on the table, but it was not accepted, all of that. So I have to keep accepting that from his mouth. Bryan Kohberger, he said that he was guilty. I took 2 days to think about the information. After the hearing, I sat down and I wrote at least 50 questions that I had concerning the case. I'm not going to do it in this video because I need to take more time to process the guilty pleas. But I did want to come on here for my community, for my subscribers, and express some of the thoughts that I had at the time of the hearing on July 2nd. I actually wrote down my feelings because I was all over the place. I was nervous, I was anxious, I was concerned. I was thinking about the victims, I was thinking about their families. Um, I know how I felt, so I could only imagine how the families felt. I was feeling all kind of feelings, nervous, frustrated, and that's why I have to just keep saying guilty, 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 guilty. Because up until that moment, I felt that there was a lot of reasonable doubt. I felt that there was a ton of circumstantial evidence. I felt that there was problems with every piece of integral evidence, from the video of the suspect vehicle to the touch DNA, how it was processed, to all of the evidence that did not get processed. And now is not the time to go through all of that. But I'm just expressing in those moments, I wrote the names down of each victim. Because I wanted them to be in my forethought. And I thought this would be like a weight lifted off. This would be like a release, that they would have this justice, and that it would feel so good that finally the truth of it all would be out. But that's not what it felt like. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel like justice. Heavy. It was dark. It was sad. It was loneliness. It was, no answers. No answers for the victims' families. And that's why I sat down and I wrote every question that I had, because Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, he stood up and he repeated information that we know is not true. We know Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were not sleeping. We know that crime scene was cleaned up. We have no idea at all when Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle arrived at the property 1122 King Road. We have no idea. And it's leaving me with the questions, because due to not having a trial, again, not having a preliminary hearing, going to the grand jury, we don't sealed. It must feel like a crushing, like someone has taken the life out of you. For 2 years, I followed this case. I researched this case. I read documents, motions, hearings. I watched thousands of videos. I myself have come before you over and over and over and over again, wanting to find out who murdered these 4 students unprovoked, with malice, with hate and violence, brutally, viciously. A heinous crime, a crime of the century. Their blood dripping, pouring out, leaving their bodies, their lifeless bodies, laying on the ground in the bed 4 hours. And I didn't get any answers. And to me, there was no factual basis. Responding yes and responding guilty is not a factual basis. And I need more time. I need more time to his family had been threatened. A family member was killed, and a witness that was going to testify on his behalf was murdered just 2 days before. And that if he had not taken this step to admit responsibility ability. To be heard. When I saw Ethan Chapin's parents, they released a video of Ethan Chapin in a traffic stop. And it was breaking me down. My apologies. I was having some internet issues. Let's move forward. Let's get to our article. How about that? Let's do it. Because this video is just to establish that Bryan Kohberger, he entered a guilty plea for the burglary, for the murder of 21-year-old Kaylee Gonclaves, 21-year-old Madison Mogen, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle, and 20-year-old Ethan. He facing life sentence each for each of the deaths of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. He will not have the ability to appeal his guilty plea or his sentencing. And in exchange for this guilty plea, he will not receive the death penalty. Okay. So let's put up a picture of Mr. Kohberger. This is a picture of Mr. Kohberger at the hearing. The article that we're going to review is from pbs.org. It's titled Bryan Kohberger Pleads Guilty to Murder After Admitting to Brutal Stabbing Death of 4 Idaho Students. The article was written July 2nd, 2025. And the the authors are Jesse Badon from the Associated Press / Report for America, and Gene Johnson from the Associated Press. Bryan Kohberger to murder Wednesday in the brutal stabbing deaths of four University of Idaho students in 2022 that stunned and terrified the campus and set off a nationwide search, which ended weeks later when he was arrested in Pennsylvania. Kohberger, who was a criminal justice graduate student at nearby Washington State University, admitted to the slayings before entering a formal guilty plea in a deal with prosecutors that will allow him to avoid the death penalty. He had been set to go to trial in August. The small farming community of Moscow in the northern Idaho panhandle had not had a homicide in about 5 years when 22. Autopsy showed each of the four victims were stabbed multiple times and some had defensive wounds. Kohberger killed Mogen and Gonclaves together and then ran into Kernodle, who was still awake, Lake Tahoe County prosecuting attorney Bill Thompson said at the hearing Wednesday. He then stabbed Kernodle and her boyfriend Chapin, who was still asleep, Thompson said. Family members became increasingly emotional as Idaho 4th Judicial District Judge Stephen Hippler explained each charge to Kohberger, naming each victim individually. Some cried into tissues while others wiped tears with their hands. Kohberger remained impassive as he confirmed to the judge that he stabbed the four victims. As he pleaded guilty, some in the family section looked down and others craned to see him. Kohberger told the judge he understood the terms of the plea deal, which stipulates he will serve 4 life sentences and won't be able to appeal. The judge set the official sentencing for July 23rd. Hippler said as the hearing began that he would not take into account public opinion when deciding whether to accept the agreement. This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to do that, he said. This court cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. The killings grabbed headlines around the world and set off a nationwide hunt, including an elaborate effort to track down a white sedan spotted on surveillance cameras repeatedly driving by the rental home. Police said they used genetic genealogy to identify Kohberger as a possible suspect and assessed cell phone data to pinpoint his movements the night of the killings. At the time, Kohberger was a criminal justice graduate student at nearby Washington State University who had just completed his first semester and was a teaching assistant in the criminology program. Kohberger was arrested in Pennsylvania, where his parents lived. Weeks later, investigators said they matched his DNA to genetic material recovered from a knife sheath found at the crime scene. Only shopping records showed that Kohberger had purchased a military-style knife months earlier, as well as a sheath like the one found at the scene. No motive has emerged for the killings, nor is it clear why the attacker spared 2 roommates who were in the home. There also was no indication he had a relationship with any of the victims who all were friends and members of the university's Greek system. Authorities have said cell phone data and surveillance video show that Kohberger visited the victim's neighborhood at least a dozen times before the killings and that he traveled in the same area that night. Kohberger's lawyer said he was simply on a long drive by himself around the time the four were killed. The case was moved to Boise because of pretrial publicity in northern Idaho. Hippler must approve the plea deal. If Kohberger pleads guilty as expected, he would likely be sentenced in July. Although the Gonclaves family opposed the agreement and said they would seek to stop it, they also argued that any such deal should require Kohberger to make a full confession, detail the facts of what happened, and provide the location of the murder weapon. We deserve to know when the beginning of the end was, they wrote in a Facebook post. The family of Chapin, one of three triplets who attended the university together, supports the deal, their spokesperson Christina Tevez said Tuesday. Attorney Leander James, who represents Mogen's mother and stepfather, declined to give their views but said he would deliver a statement on their behalf after Wednesday's hearing. Mogen's father, Ben Mogen, told CBS News he was relieved by the agreement. We can actually put this behind us and not have these future dates and future things that we don't want to have to be at, that we shouldn't have to be at, that have to do with this terrible person, he said. We get to just think about the rest of lives, probably our lives, and have to try and figure out how to do it without Maddie and the rest of the kids. I have a short video that I'm going to share. Just exhale it out if you like me. I didn't even set the video up. My apologies. A lot of, feelings about doing this video. I have a lot of thoughts. There's just going to be multiple videos. Emotionally, this is taking a lot out of me. I'm sure other creators, they feel the same, especially because we really don't have anything answered. We still have a ton of questions. I'm going to have to break this down into different segments to discuss the victims' families and their feelings, their responses. Each is 4 families: the family of Kaylee, the family of Madison Mogen, the family of Ethan Chapin, and also the family of Xana Kernodle. But I also have to highlight Bryan Kohberger's family. They did release a statement, which wasn't really a statement, but they did release something. And then I also have my questions that I'm going to, I've already wrote them down, or my ideas. I'm going to go over them. And then I also want to go over that information that came out as to why Bryan Kohberger did this plea deal, because this plea deal interest is really not. And that's okay. He has a right to plead if he wants to. Okay, that's his right, and he did that. So I do want to share that information with you, and I'm looking into that more, and I have some information about it. So I am going to share that information with you. I just want to be, including of all of the angles, from the victim's family to Bryan Kohberger's family to also this angle. And I can definitely get this done before the sentencing on July 23rd, where we can hear some of the detailed victim impact statements, as well as if Bryan Kohberger is going to make a statement, which I do not believe he will. I don't think he's going to make a statement. So let's watch this short video. This is not replacing the hearing. I will go over the hearing in more depth, but it's taken a lot out of me. My daughter told me today, like, Ma, you just have to start. You just have to get this initial video out and just take it in smaller pieces, because I've been pretty hurt by this. I've seen both sides, and it's devastating for Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonclaves, everybody's family, because you want closure, but they deserve the truth. And I know people are going to be upset with me. I know people are going to feel he said he did it. He said he was guilty. Just accept that. And I'm accepting that, but I'm not going to lie to you. I have not done that. I will not do that. That I am perplexed. I am confused. I am frustrated. I have more questions. And I hoped that there was going to be a foundation laid for the factual basis of each guilty plea. For an example, the guilty plea for the burglary. And Bryan Kohberger doesn't have to do this. Doesn't have to go into details. He has a right to plead guilty and remain silent. However, I want to know, how did you enter the property 1122 King Road? And before that, how did you get there? Did you drive a car? Did you walk? Did you park the car somewhere else? Were you already there? Did you know these victims? Had you been at 1122 King Road prior to that? So what I think is best for me is to present the hearing and then present all of the questions. And I might have to put it in a category, like organized way, because I was just brainstorming when I sat down and wrote up like 60 questions. But we don't have any answers, because he didn't give a factual basis for any of the charges, including the homicide of each victim. Bill Thompson gave a synopsis of what he felt happened, but there's still a lot of questions, a lot of holes. And one of the biggest ones is, what were the roommates doing at 1122 King Road after the murder? That 7.5 window, because there appears to be a crime scene cleanup by someone. And it's just more and more questions. So I'm going to do that. I probably will do that at the end. I will probably take the reactions from all of the victims' families and Bryan Kohberger's family first for the guilty pleas. And then I will go over my questions, my thoughts, and I will have all of this done prior to the July 23rd sentencing of Bryan Kohberger. I will commit to that. Chick Bait says hi. Hello, Chick Bait. How are you? I hope all is well. So let's get to this brief video. I wanted to keep this video fairly short, just to get this out, and then we will have a few future videos just to go into more detail. So this video is provided by KTVB. It's titled Bryan Kohberger Pleads Guilty to Killing 4 Idaho Students. I kept the video very brief because I wanted to keep it short just to get this on the record, and then we will go through the hearing as well as any questions or ideas or concerns If you are feeling like me and you have more questions, you want some answers, send me your questions and I will keep them separate from mine and I can go through them. If anyone wants to have their question read when I do my questions, I can do that for you. So you can always put the question in the comment section of this video. So let's hear Mr. Kohberger and him.
2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder.
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonclaves, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
If I wanted hair hanging down my back like...
Okay, my apologies. I think you guys get the point. We don't have to belabor it. We're gonna leave it here for today. I don't want to overwhelm myself with this grief. It would be better for me to do separate videos to focus on each victim and their family. So I hope you can understand what I'm saying and why I'm doing things the way that I'm doing it. It's just over encompassing for me to be in this feeling of some confusion, some frustration, some acceptance that Bryan Kohberger pled guilty. It's very hard for me to believe that. And I just go back to the beginning. Bryan Kohberger didn't have any defensive wounds. Once the evidence comes out, and I hope the autopsy report is released for each victim, as well as their toxicology screen. But for example, Kaylee Gonclaves' father on the Drunk Turkey show on YouTube, he made some statements, and one thing that he stated, and I don't have it word for word in front of me, but he talked about how it appeared that Kaylee was like punched in the face to the point where those punches could have killed her. And you, as I both well know, you're going to have busted knuckles. You're going to have some injuries. Bryan Kohberger just didn't have any. And I'm not saying he is not the killer. There could be others involved. I have questions about that. So I'm going to leave it here for today because this is what I can handle as far as it relates to Bryan Kohberger's plea deal, his guilty pleas, and wanting to not give you a 2-3 hour video where we're just exhausted discussing everything. I'm going to break it down into smaller videos. And hopefully this will help you as well as we focus on each victim and their family. So I hope you understand that. I hope you can understand my feelings, my emotions. I very much so sympathize with the victims' families I know they want justice. I know they want the truth. And if this brings some of them closure in moving forward, you know, I pray that this is true, truthful, to allow that closure for them to move forward. So has come very difficult. It's very difficult for me. And knowing what I know, and I didn't have all of the evidence, I didn't see everything, I don't know everything. I don't know if they're going to continue to release details. They released that video of Ethan Chapin the night before the hearing, so I'm going to share that when I talk about Ethan's family. So I think this will help, and this will keep me organized. So I really want to thank you for, you know, going through this with me, with this case. You know, trusting me to bring you the information and bring my ideas to this platform. For me, I'm going to take the time that I need to thoroughly discuss what has happened, and I want to do it in a way that doesn't hurt anyone. And I know feelings are really raw, and I have no intention of causing further harm or injury to any of the victims' families. And I'll leave it at that. So thank you for spending this time with me. I really, really appreciate it. I want you to stay safe, stay smart, stay savvy. Be well, all my friends. Bye, everybody. Happy 4th of July to you and your family. Bye, everybody.